I'm Tim Pedro, and today on Kitchen Craft, I'm going to teach you how to make a bechamel sauce. Then I'm going to teach you how to make the most delicious creamy cheese sauce. And then I'm going to teach you how to turn this into this. So one of the first things they teach you in culinary school is how to make a roux, which quite simply is a mixture of flour and fat. And today we're using butter, which is the most common fat used in making a roux. From your roux, you're able to make a white sauce, you're able to thicken other sauces, and then from your white sauce or your bechamel, you're able to make your cheese sauces or your creamy mushroom sauces or pepper sauces. So it's an essential skill and an essential recipe that you need to know. So if it's your first time making a roux or making a bechamel sauce, I suggest you start on a medium-low heat. And the reason for that is, the lower the heat, the more time you have to kind of work the flour into the butter without it burning. The normal ratio for making a roux is 1 part butter to 1 part flour by volume. But I find that it makes a paste which is a little too thick. And when you're working with a paste that's too thick, it tends to burn sometimes. So I like to go for a 2-to-1 ratio. So 2 parts butter to 1 part flour. So get your butter into the pot, and you want your butter to melt completely before you add your flour. Butter is almost there. So I've got about, let's say, about 3 tablespoons of butter in the pot, and it's looking good. So I'm going to go with a heaped tablespoon of flour. That'll do. Once you add that flour, to stop it from forming lumps, you want to start mixing it immediately. So you could use a silicone spatula, you could use a wooden spoon, you could use your whisk at that stage, but I find the silicone spatula is perfectly fine. If you are worried about getting lumps, go for the whisk. You'll see that the fat, which is our butter, and the flour come together quite easily. And with you mixing it the whole time, if there are any lumps, it'll just like melt away, which is exactly what you want. You also never want to walk away from your roux. So once you get your butter and your flour mixing or combined, you want to stay with it. Keep on mixing it, because your roux will burn very quickly, especially if you're not keeping an eye on it. I know that we're ready for the next ingredient, which is our milk. Again, this is done gradually. You don't want to add all of it, because then you'll be fighting with incorporating all that roux into the milk that you've added. Once you add that milk to your pot, you'll see it's going to start thickening really quickly, like a porridge. So you want to make sure you're really whisking, getting in the corner of your pot. We don't have any lumps, but if you do find that you get lumps, maybe you've like left your bechamel for a few seconds while it's heating up, you don't need to panic. What I would suggest you doing is either adding your bechamel to a blender and then just blitzing it up, and that'll just remove all those fine lumps, or use a stick blender, that works as well. So don't throw your bechamel away, it can be saved. We're looking good at this stage. You can actually turn the heat up now. We're still going to need a bit more milk while it's coming to temperature, but at this stage I like to add a little more flavor, and I like doing that by using bay leaves. You could use dry or fresh, but always remember, if you're using dry bay leaves, they are more intense in flavor than the fresh version. So I'm going to go with 2 bay leaves. If you were using a fresh bay leaf, you could use 4 for this. And as soon as you add it, it starts getting this like subtly earthy perfume flavor to your bechamel. A little more milk. And you know that your bechamel is at the perfect consistency. When I say it should look like a pancake batter, that should have that consistency. But once you add your cheese, it's going to thicken up again. And don't forget, bring it up to a simmer always before you add more milk to it. So we are looking good right now. And I want to give it a little bit of salt. We're not going to add a lot of salt or season it completely, because the cheese we're using, and cheese in general, is salty. So I'd rather add the cheese, taste it then, and then give it a final seasoning at the end. The final element of seasoning that we add to our bechamel sauce is nutmeg. It elevates your sauce to the next level. And with nutmeg, a little bit goes a long way. So the tiniest little bit will do. Bechamels are actually quite forgiving. If you add your cheese to it and you find that your sauce is quite thick, you could always add a little more milk to it just to thin it out. I'm so happy with that. Let's have a look at that consistency. That is a beautiful bechamel sauce. So now it's my favorite part. It's where we turn our bechamel into a cheese sauce. So I'm using this smoked Stanford, but you can use any cheese that you like. You want to grate your cheese. The reason for that is when you grate it, it melts evenly into your sauce. Another thing is you never want to add all your cheese to the sauce at once. You want to give that sauce a chance to melt that cheese. and in with our cheeses gradually. Once you add your cheese to your sauce, you'll see it'll start thickening up. Exactly what you want to happen. If you're going to be using your cheese sauce a little later, you want to store it correctly. And the way you do that is by taking a piece of baking paper or plastic wrap, and you're going to press it down directly onto your sauce. It will stopping any air from getting to your sauce. What the air does, as soon as air makes contact with your sauce and it settles there, it forms this like skin on the top of your sauce, and you don't want that. So, ready for the next part, our cauliflower. So to prepare our cauliflower with the leaves on, we're going to start with a drizzling of olive oil. And we are serving with the leaves on because the leaves have a flavor of their own. You do want to give it a bit of a rub, so you make sure that the whole cauliflower is coated in olive oil. Then a little bit of salt, and it goes into the oven. It's that simple. And magically, after 40 minutes of roasting at 180, we've got this beautiful, beautiful cauliflower. We're not done there, so the cheese sauce goes on now. What we're going to do is take the baking paper off of our cheese sauce and just kind of like slide it on the rib so you don't waste any of that delicious cheese sauce. And now the cheese sauce goes over. 5 to 10 minutes in the oven again, under the grill, get that cheese bubbling, super charry, and you're good to go. I'm happy. That looks so good. You're definitely going to want to make this recipe. It is so simple to make, and the results, I mean, they speak for themselves. Only thing that it needs though, a little bit of freshly cracked black pepper. So get the recipe, make this. I swear, you're not going to be disappointed.